Hi there and welcome back to Tyburn Road. Today I'm going to do a very brief clip on how to prepare Seep motors, Seep point motors. It's quite straightforward, but obviously there aren't a lot of videos around on the internet showing you how to do this. So your common or garden Seep motor requires 3 wires to be soldered to it, and that will be right, left and common. So I'm using green for right, red for left and black for common. So the first job is to cut the number of wires you need for however many motors you're fitting to your points. The next thing is to strip both ends of each wire and twist them ready for soldering. When it comes to soldering, there are some things you can do to make your life a lot easier. The first one is to use a soldering paste. You can get these on eBay for pretty much nothing, for just a couple of quid. And you simply, using a cocktail stick, apply a little paste to the wire you're going to be soldering and to the pad that you're going to be soldering onto. Make sure you keep the tip of your soldering iron clean. Clean it between each application using a sponge, or I prefer the little brass foil cleaners. And then it's fairly straightforward. So just for clarity, red, left is being applied or soldered to position A on the point motor. C, common, the black wire, is applied to C, so it's easy to remember. C for common, and that wire is soldered to that position. And then finally the right wire is soldered to the B position. And that's it. That's how you prepare a common or garden Seep point motor, how you wire it ready for installation on your layout. Hi there and welcome back to Tyburn Road, and today we're going to look at wiring up point motors to make them operational. So I'm assuming that you have fitted your point motor to the underside of the baseboard here, that you've slotted the little armature through the hole in your baseboard and through the connecting hole on the point. So we're going from that point forward. So having fitted the point motor, the next thing that I choose to do is again use these 3-part chock blocks rather than trying to solder upside down under my baseboard. And it's fairly straightforward. So the left wire, the red wire, goes into the left part of the chock block. The central wire, the black wire, the common wire, goes into the central part. And as you would expect, the right wire, the green wire, goes into the right part of the chock block. And you can see it here next to the CDU, which is the capacitor discharge unit, and that's the next thing I need to talk about. So the capacitor discharge unit ensures a strong pulse of power to the point motor when you operate the switch. And looking at it, the important bits here, for me anyway, are the 4 screw terminals. From top to bottom, they are power in positive, power in negative, power out positive, power out negative. So the first thing we're going to do is to connect the power out negative, that's position 4, the lowest screw terminal. We're going to connect a black wire from that to our first point chock block, and then daisy chain it from there to every single common connection on every point, so that you've effectively got a continuous run from the CDU to every point under your baseboard. So the first thing to do then is to insert a wire into the 4th position, power out negative from the CDU. So wire a little black wire into there, and then that goes into position 4. And then we measure from this point motor to the chock block for the next point motor the distance, and cut a piece of wire sufficiently long to bridge that gap. Strip the ends, and then we twist that new piece of wire we've cut to the small piece coming from the CDU and wire it into the first chock block. So you have a wire going from the CDU into the chock block, and then a wire coming back out of the chock block, travelling on to the next point motor chock block, and so forth. You daisy chain all the way through every single point motor, which is something I've tried to show in this last rather fuzzy image. So from the top of the screen you can see the black wire going into the first point motor and coming back out, and then daisy chaining down to the next one. And we will repeat that process by inserting another wire into this second chock block and going on to the next point motor, and so forth and so on. Hello and welcome back to Tyburn Road, and today we're going to finish off wiring up our point motors, concentrating on wiring our switches into the system. So starting with the switch, on this particular one there are lots of wires, but the wires we're interested in from the switch are the red, green and black wire, and these will travel from the switch underneath the baseboard or through the baseboard to the underside, where we will connect them to the wires coming from the point motors. As is usual for me, I'm using chock blocks to connect the wires underneath the baseboard, and these need to be in combinations of 3. So you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 separate connections. So that will carry 3 switches using 3 connections. On this particular one you can see a yellow wire coming into the second connection on the strip of chock block, and this yellow wire is coming from the CDU, the capacitor discharge unit, coming from position 3 if you refer to the previous video, which is the power out positive, directly to this first switch. So in this picture we see the situation as it should currently stand for you. You have your point motor in place with green, black and red wires going into the chock block, and then black wires coming from the power out negative on the CDU coming into the point motor and then going back out onto the next point motor. To this we then wire in a corresponding green and red wire into the chock block that will go from here directly to the strip of chock block we're using to connect the switch wires to the point motor wires. So here we see the wires coming from the switch. So if you remember, I said we were focused on the green, black and red. Green at the top, black in the middle, red at the bottom here. Opposite the yellow wire coming in from the CDU. So the yellow wire that I've used, whatever colour you use, will connect to the black wire from the switch. You then connect the green wire from the point motor chock block into the first position, obviously corresponding to the green wire coming from the switch. And again, obviously the red wire from the point motor comes in to the third position on the first switch chock block, opposite its corresponding red wire from the switch. Now, as with the power out negative wire from the CDU, the black wire we've used that had to daisy chain from point motor to point motor to point motor, we also need to daisy chain the power out positive, in this case I've used a yellow wire, from switch to switch to switch. So we've got the yellow wire coming into the chock block directly from the power out positive on the CDU, and I've then inserted a short wire into the same connection, ready to carry over for the next switch. And you can see that here the short wire connects the central part of the first 3 chock blocks to the central connection of the second block of 3 chock blocks, ready for the next switch. So in this picture then we have the wires at the bottom from the second switch, as before, green, black, red, going into the chock block. And then the corresponding red and green wires coming from the second switch into the chock block opposite their corresponding wires from the switch. And that's it. You're then going to daisy chain the yellow wire from this switch to the next switch in the same way, wire in the wires from the switches to the next block of 3 on your chock block, and bring across the red and green wires from the point motor into their corresponding position. After that, the only thing left to do is to connect power to the CDU, which is straightforward. Positions 1 and 2 are power in positive and power in negative, and as you would expect, you connect the positive wire from your transformer or power source into the power in positive and the negative wire into the power in negative, and you're good to go. I hope you found this useful, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye bye.